Before sleek plastic machines, before digital screens on treadmills, and before climate-controlled corporate fitness clubs. There was Venice Beach, the sweat, the chalk, the clanking of raw cast iron. This is where legends were forged. And this is the inspiration behind my brand new home gym. Modern gyms are great, but they've lost their soul. Everything is rubber-coated, quiet, and over-engineered. I wanted to strip it all back. My goal for this build: create an authentic, old-school dungeon gym right at home. No distractions, no fancy gimmicks, just raw steel, heavy iron, and the kind of atmosphere where you actually have to put in real work. Today, I'm showing you how I built it from the ground up. Remember this room, because by the end of this video, you probably won't recognize it. So this is where the whole home gym journey started. And honestly, calling this a gym right now would be a bit of a stretch. At this point, this room was basically being used as a storage space. There were materials, boxes, bags, buckets, and pretty much everything except gym equipment. The floor was dusty, the walls had stains, the lighting wasn't great, and there was barely any usable space to actually train. But when I looked at this room, I didn't see a storage room. I saw the potential to turn it into my own personal gym. The idea was to completely transform this space from what you're seeing right now into a proper home gym where I could actually train, lift heavy, and have everything I need in one place. And as you can see, we had a lot of work to do. So this is the starting point. The walls had been in pretty rough condition, so before going straight in with the final color, we gave them a proper coat of white primer. And honestly, even with just the primer, the room already started looking completely different. But this was only the preparation. Because now it was time for the color I had in mind for the gym. Black. We started mixing and preparing the black paint, and this is where the transformation really started to feel real. The plan was to give the walls a deep, clean black finish and create that dark gym atmosphere I was going for. By the time the painting was finished, it was already dark outside. But the entire room had been transformed. But there was one problem. The lighting wasn't great, and with the paint still wet, I couldn't really judge the final finish properly. So instead of rushing to make a decision, I decided to leave it overnight. And come back the next morning. And the next morning, the paint was completely dry, and honestly, the room looked so much better than it did the night before. The black walls gave the room a completely different atmosphere. The black paint was finally on the walls, although some areas were still wet and needed time to completely dry. Even at this stage, I could already start to see the look I had imagined for the gym. Now that the walls were finally painted, it was time to work on something that would completely change the look of the room: the lighting. I wanted the gym to be bright enough for proper workouts, but at the same time, I wanted the lights to complement the dark walls. So the lights were installed, the connections were done, and honestly, this was the moment the room started to actually feel like a gym. The dark walls combined with the bright white lights gave the room a completely different look. One more major step was done, and we were getting closer and closer to the finished gym. The next morning, I came back to see how everything looked. With the paint completely dried and the lights on, the room was finally starting to look like the gym I had imagined. And now, you can also see the base of the squat and deadlift platform already in place. This is where I'll be doing all the heavy lifting, so getting this part right was really important. Next up was the flooring. I wanted the entire workout area to have proper rubber flooring, so I started laying down the mats. And after getting all the mats properly placed and aligned, this is how the floor turned out. The entire workout area was now covered, giving me a much safer and more suitable surface for the gym. The flooring was done, and now all the gym equipment had started arriving. But there was just one problem: almost everything was still packed inside these boxes. So after all the waiting, planning and setting up the room, it was finally time to see what was inside. There was a lot to unbox, and this was basically the beginning of the transformation from an empty room into an actual gym. So, let's start opening these boxes. You can't build a golden era gym without the right foundation. And that means one thing: cast iron. I skipped the modern bumper plates and tracked down classic, deep-dished cast iron plates. There is nothing quite like the sound of iron hitting iron. It keeps you honest. I went with independent racks instead of a traditional power rack because I wanted to keep the setup more open and give myself more flexibility with the space. Everything came packed separately, so I started by getting all the pieces out and checking that everything was there. And then came one of the most important pieces of the entire gym, the barbell. After all the work that went into building this place, seeing the barbell finally sitting there made it feel like this was actually becoming a gym. Since I decided to go with independent squat racks instead of a full power rack, I had to assemble each side separately and make sure everything was properly aligned and tightened. This part took a little more time than I expected. There were quite a few pieces to put together, and I wanted to make sure everything was properly secured because these racks are going to be taking some serious weight. And slowly, what started as a pile of parts was finally beginning to look like an actual squat rack. After getting the first one together, I repeated the same process for the other side. And finally, both racks were ready. This was another big moment in the rebuild, because now the gym was starting to feel less like a construction project, and more like an actual training space. Before putting the equipment on the platform, I wanted to make sure the base was properly protected. So I started by applying the first coat of wood polish over the entire surface. I let it dry completely before moving on to the next coat. After 3 coats, the platform had a much better finish and, more importantly, a protective layer that should help it handle years of heavy training. Now that the platform base was properly protected, it was time to add the final layer, the heavy-duty mats for deadlifting. I had ordered these specifically for the deadlift area, so they were going to take a lot of abuse once the heavy lifting started.
Ready?
What started as an empty room has slowly turned into a proper training space. From painting the walls, setting up the flooring, building the deadlift platform, installing the squat racks, and finally bringing in all the equipment, it's been a long process, but seeing everything in one place makes it completely worth it. There are still a few things I want to add, upgrade, to make this gym even better. So this is just the beginning.